Experimenting and innovating should go hand in hand.
You walk into an atmosphere where the students have excelled academically. The atmosphere is so vibrant and encouraging that it stretches you to go for more.
The USP of VIT lies in its choice of excellent faculty who have real-world experience, who also train you with skills much needed for you to excel at whatever you're passionate about.
Interactive mode of learning is practiced at VIT, where students and teachers takes up real-time problems and comes up with a solution. You are constantly learning new things.
VIT AP Engineering Institute is the flagship institute of the trusted name in education, VIT University. It has been consistently reckoned among the top engineering institute of the nation and the first choice of the students across the nation for engineering studies.
Laboratories are equipped with state-of-the-art facilities, well-trained and professional staff, an arena where you can ideate and create.
Ideas are given a platform to be explored that can change the whole dynamic of engineering. Engineering Clinics is a unique initiative undertaken by VIT to rope in creative talent.
The true method of knowledge is experimenting. VIT AP Engineering Clinics are conceptualized by this philosophy. Students here, with their creative and innovative bent of mind and ideas, are encouraged to conceive, ideate, design, discover, and apply their learning. Qualities like leadership, teamwork, synergistic approach to problems for creative solutions are developed in the engineering clinics. VIT AP School of Business is one of the nation's fastest emerging business schools that is widely gaining popularity. Everything here is aligned to groom your career, take leap from classroom to boardroom, and help you to evolve as a leader. VIT AP School of Law, where the fine nuances of the legal system are familiarized and used to produce fine lawyers and judiciary for the nation. VIT School of Animation, where you can ideate, experiment, and create your imaginative world as the school adds colors to your dreams and help you to take your flight of success. Spacious hostel rooms, multi-cuisine cafeteria, sports arena, state-of-the-art gymnasium, all affording an opportunity for holistic development of the student. That leaves its indelible imprint on numerous lives. An imprint of success, effectiveness, and service. We welcome you to the VIT AP University.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Times CyberSense. As we see, as our days go by, we spend more and more time online. And with the pandemic, some would argue the whole of our lives have been transferred online. But what has been a little disturbing is that it has also increased cybercrime. It has increased violence in many ways. So today's topic cannot be more relevant and cannot be brought about at a more relevant point in time. As a responsible media house, the Times of India has been bringing webinars to create awareness on different topics for the public. This time, we have collaborated with CyberSathi Foundation to bring you this webinar, Times CyberSense. It will be a great platform for principals, teachers, parents, students, and anyone aligned with the young to increase their awareness on cyber safety. We have brought together expert panelists from the fields of governance, education, psychology, law on board to discuss this topic and the laws governing it. The webinar has been curated by Ms. Napinai, Advocate, Supreme Court, cyber law specialist, and founder of the CyberSathi Foundation. The key discussion points will be on the importance of cyber safety awareness, the role of the government and police in ensuring cyber safety for children, inclusion of cyber safety in the education curriculum, and the psychological impact of cyber threats and the vulnerabilities on our children. The event is brought to you and presented by the Vellore Institute of Technology, VIT AP University, and VIT School of Law, and powered by M Academy. I would request Dr. S.V. Kotareddy to share his opening remarks. I'll just introduce him briefly. Dr. S.V. Kotareddy, Vice Chancellor of the VIT AP University, is a veteran academician and administrator with more than 30 years of teaching and research experience. He holds a doctorate degree in mechanical engineering from IIT Mumbai. He's established several centers of excellence and labs in collaboration with industries and has established several reputed student exchange programs. Dr. Kotareddy has filed 7 patents, 1 in US, 2 international, and 4 Indian in association with IIT Mumbai. He has also published several research papers in Scopus Web of Science index journals and conferences. He was a recipient of the award for outstanding contribution to education for 2 consecutive years at the Middle East Education Leadership Awards by the Asian Confederation of Business. He is a PhD examiner for IIT Mumbai and many other prestigious universities in India. And just before we started, he was sharing with us how conscious he is as an academician towards this cause. So, sir, kindly share with us your opening remarks.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for the introduction. Respected Mr. Jayesh Ranjan, Secretary Information Technology, Government of Telangana, Ms. N.S. Napinai, Advocate, Supreme Court, and founder, CyberSathi, Ms. Swati Lakra, ADGP, Women Safety, including SHE teams, Telangana State, Dr. Purnima Nagaraj, psychotherapist, trainer, mentor, and motivational speaker. Dr. Banerjee Chakka, Dean, School of Law, VIT AP University. Principals, school teachers, parents, and their students. It is with great pleasure that I welcome you all to this panel discussion on online safety, living with technology. This event is organized by Times of India in association with the School of Law, VIT AP University. My hearty congratulations to the School of Law, VIT AP University to take this initiation. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the Times of India to collaborate with VIT AP University to organize this panel discussion with such eminent speakers. Today's topic for the panel discussion is the most relevant to provide solution for the problems being encountered by the students while using the internet. We all know that internet radically changed the human life. And it is important in our life. Now, there is a saying that without food also we can survive, but without internet we can't survive now. The situation is like that. And due to the pandemic, the entire world went on online teaching. The technology tools like what we are using now, Zoom, MS Teams, Google Forms, and so on, are helping the entire world. Thanks to these technologies, thanks to these inventors of these technologies, and thanks to the companies who are providing these technologies. Being an academician for more than 30 years, I have observed that uncontrolled affinity towards technology or internet has resulted in psychological disorders, health issues, less attention span, isolation, discontent, cyber attacks, and cyberbullying among the students. Nowadays, students are very much attracted towards online games, spending their valuable time on them. And slowly, the students are getting addicted to these online games. We are witnessing that many kids committing suicide in India and also the entire world. Technology can truly be a blessing if we learn how to utilize it for productive and fruitful purposes. Needless to say that tech-savvy minds are in demand today and are easily absorbed by MNCs and with good pay packages. A focused and accountable lifestyle will allow children to study smart and achieve better grades in the exams. Teenagers are most attracted towards internet. I would say sometimes the parents also adding fuel to the fire. I have seen some parents say that you get 90% of the marks in the exams. I will give you a smartphone. Directly, parents are encouraging to use the smartphone. Nothing wrong in that. But only thing is, parents also should teach the children how to use them appropriately. That is the responsibility of the parent. And middle-aged people also are using internet extensively. Recently, I met one of my friends with Nokia old phone. And then casually I asked him, why are you using this old phone without any apps? Because nowadays without the WhatsApp or Facebook or anything, we can't survive. And he said he has been addicted with the smartphone and he is sleeping very less hours. And then when he met doctor advised him not to use smartphone. Therefore, he went back to the old Nokia phone. But anyway, we will not be able to survive with that, but we have to have proper balance in using these social media and internet and these technologies. Albert Einstein said, at the end of the day, technology will surpass human interaction. The world will have generation of idiots. He said these words much before internet. Today, these words are true. I'll tell you a small example. I've seen a family with 2 kids. One is of 5 years old and the other is of 10 years old. Everyone is busy with their smartphones in their rooms and busy always even during holidays. Even if they come to the dining table also. This kind of atmosphere is creating disconnect in the family and no family values, no emotions, no affection, and so on. Therefore, citizens need to be etiquette. Similarly, citizens need to be netiquette. Dear friends, today we have with us eminent panelists who are going to talk about cyber crimes and how to tackle them and how technology is helping in women's safety and so on. Before I conclude, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Mr. Manikanthan Nair, Assistant Vice President and Branch Head AP and Telangana, Mr. Umang, DGM, Mr. Prashant, Senior Manager, Ms. Deepal Gala, and other team members of Times of India for giving this opportunity. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Kotareddy, for your very pertinent remarks. I'm sure most parents are concerned about things you just stated. I'd like to move on to introducing our chief guest for today. Mr. Jayesh Ranjan doesn't need an introduction for anybody in Hyderabad, but these videos are seen all over the country. And I would like to just briefly say that he is a member of the Indian Administrative Service of the 1992 batch. And he holds a degree in psychology from Delhi University, a degree in business management from IIM Calcutta, and a master's in public management from the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy, National University of Singapore. He was the All India topper of his IS batch of 1992. Jayesh Ranjan is currently, I mean, he's had many roles in his life, career in the IS, but he's currently the Principal Secretary of the Industries and Commerce and Information Technology Departments of Telangana government. And he has spearheaded several new revolutionary projects and really brought a special highlight to the city of Hyderabad along with his very effective team. And we have a phenomenal Minister of Technology also. His work involves developing policy frameworks, attracting new investments, identifying opportunities for utilizing IT in various government processes, and promoting the digital empowerment of citizens. Here, I would like to say that it is rare to have a humane technology approach. And I've always seen Mr. Jayesh Ranjan try and bring the best of technology, but also keep in mind the human side and the human impact of all the policy decisions that the Telangana government takes. And so I'm really excited to hear what he has to say about the topic today. Moderating the conversation will be Ms. N.S. Napiani, Supreme Court advocate and founder of CyberSathi. She's a senior and renowned lawyer with about 30 years of experience, specializing in constitutional, criminal, IPR, and cyber law. She is amicus curiae before Supreme Court in Prajwala versus Union of India to formulate methodologies to remove child sexual abuse material and violent videos of offenses against women from online platforms. It is an incredible pioneering effort. And I was just talking to her before we started. It is just amazing the kind of work she's doing. An alumna of Stanford CDDRL, Chevening UK, and the IVLP USA. Ms. Napiani trains judges, police, armed forces, and intelligence agencies, and has addressed sessions at national and international conferences on this topic. Just before letting Ms. Napiani take over, I would like to share an anecdote. I was at the WHO in Berlin 2 years ago, and there was a special long session on pedophilia, and there was representation from all countries. And they were scientists who advised the CIA and the FBI on how to that we are not doing enough. And
Deepal, your screen has frozen. So for the benefit of keeping time, if I may take over, am I audible? Can one of the participants come?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible. Nice and loud and clear.
Thank you so much. So Deepal, I'm just taking over because of paucity of time. And yes. I'm just sharing a very short presentation in terms of what is scheduled for today's discussion. because we have this amazing panel with us, and I do not want to come between the panel and you in terms of the discussion. One of my favorite quotes, which I actually relied on Thoreau for, which is so applicable even today for technology, is that we are literally hurtling towards a precipice with no plan, no control, and no brakes. And today's discussion focuses on 4 broad verticals, which is governance, the police or law enforcement, education, and health, mental health. And these are the reprising control mechanisms, which I would like to focus on in today's discussions in the context of cybercrime. Deepal was mentioning before she lost connectivity about the risks of pedophilia. I just added these statistics to show how from 1998 till today in 2018 itself, it moved from a few thousand. CSAM is for child sexual abuse material. From 3,000 CSAM, it's moved to 45 million imagery, and imagery comprises both photographs as well as videos as of 2018. This just got worse during COVID. India and cybercrime saw a surge during the COVID lockdown period. And in this surge of cybercrime, one aspect was a huge surge in financial frauds. But unfortunately, the largest surge was in pedophilia that emanated out of India. This is something which was dealt with in this matter, which Deepal mentioned also in her introduction. One of the most satisfying appearances I've had in my entire 30 years of practice in Prajwala's matter, where we were exploring the use of artificial intelligence to root out such content even at the stage of upload. Today, Prajwala has been taken forward in the intermediary guidelines of 2021, where it's become part of the law of the land. This is what one small step can actually achieve. Cyber Sati was yet another small step which started during COVID to ensure awareness amongst youngsters, and through that awareness to ensure empowerment. So there are 2 different issues here. You need to protect yourself against cybercrime, and you also have to protect those around you. So Cyber Sati is a peer mentoring program, apart from being a think tank and a thought leader in terms of cyber laws. There is another aspect which we always tend to forget when we speak about prevention, which is that all preventive measures are addressing issues to the victim. Today, we are also going to be discussing it from the perspective of whether you may be inadvertently committing a cybercrime. Some of the topics we'll be covering today are listed here, which I will be taking up individually. The broad contours of today are going to deal, therefore, with how can you use these online and digital spaces safely and responsibly, get the best out of it without falling victim to the threats and vulnerabilities on it. How can you take your remedies in law? What are your remedies in law? And what is the procedure to avail of it? How has the government used technology to help in fighting crimes on digital spaces? What are the mental health issues? And what are the roles of the educational system in helping to be peer mentors? So without further ado, I move on to our chief guest, Mr. Jayesh Ranjanji. So it's an honor and pleasure to meet you, though it is an e-meeting this time. I'm going to jump straight in. Telangana undoubtedly is a leader in effective use of technology. What, from your perspective, are the usages as a governance mechanism that Telangana has brought in to ensure safer cyberspaces?
Thank you. Thank you, Napinai Garu, for inviting me. Very good afternoon to fellow panelists. Good afternoon to all the attendees. Before I answer you, let me also congratulate you for the stellar work that you have been doing. I have come across very few people who have been so steadfast in pursuing a particular cause, which is very important for the society. And of course, we know of your work related to the Prajwala case, but the fact that you have started Cyber Sati, particularly during this lockdown period, that is very, very appreciable. And I say this for one more reason. See, while we are having this virtual meeting today, the fact is that as days go by, months go by, years go by, digitalization will occupy a much larger space in our lives. We have seen right now, it was a compulsion because of the lockdown of home-based education, online learning, teaching. Similarly, there is work from home. Lots of skill development programs are happening online. Lots of health interventions are being done virtually. And tomorrow, as more and more post-COVID economic recovery happens, there'll be lots of digitalization tools and technologies that will be applied. So there are three important implications of this. One is that people who were hitherto not on any kind of digital platform, who had no digital footprint, even they will be compelled to come on digital. For instance, if you are a rural family and you know that the schools are closed, the only way your child can take lessons is giving him an access to a device, then the parents will invest in it. They may find it very difficult to do so, but it will be a tough choice, but they will still manage somehow and provide a device to the child, and so on and so forth. So hitherto unfamiliar people will also be getting on the digital bandwagon. And again, it has multiple implications. So one is, of course, on the positive side, that the child will not be left behind. Even if the schools are closed, he will still get his lessons and he will advance and so on and so forth. But there are also potentially tremendous adverse consequences. So for instance, I can recall, and my colleague Swati ji is also on the call. Last year when the lockdown, etc. started, I recall literally every week there'll be some very sensational news items, the whole of March, the whole of April, the whole of May, and even later on lots of cyber frauds related to digital financial transactions. And one of the most common frauds would be this KYC kind of thing. Someone will call you claiming to be a representative of a digital financial company, and they will ask all kinds of information. And in that process, they will casually ask about your passcode also. And obviously, once the passcode is known to him, he can do all kinds of fraudulent things. And I know of many people who lost money. And that is a very big deterrent also in encouraging more and more people to get benefit from the digital opportunities. Many times when we see, as a state, we are promoting digital financial tools quite a lot. But we are often confronted by these kind of questions that you are asking me on the one hand to kind of subscribe to T-Wallet. T-Wallet is our government's own financial payment instrument. But what about this news item where it was shown that some 20 lakhs were skimmed? And we have no answer. I mean, some of these questions put us on a spot. So all the more responsibility that while we encourage digitalization, we are also aware about the adverse consequences, and we sensitize people about. See, eventually, you can have lots of you can have lots of technology tools, but eventually it is social understanding, social awareness, and most importantly, social protection, which just as we are wearing a mask these days to protect ourselves, similarly, our digital behavior also requires similar kind of protection. So in the specific context of CSAM and some of the other harmful exposure of young children or young users, let us say, to the internet, there are multiple things that we have done. And I'm sure when the discussion opens up to include Swati ji, she will also tell about multiple technologies. I feel very proud about the facial recognition technology, which the police department has adopted to ensure that some of these things are prevented even before someone dares to kind of use the internet to do these kind of nefarious things. So multiple things which we happen, but right now the focus is more on awareness building. And we have partnered with a local NGO. While I know that Cyber Sati also can be a very good partner, and we will definitely speak offline and discuss this. But right now we are partnering with an organization called the End Now Foundation. And using the End Now Foundation, we conduct awareness programs in different schools. police department has started a campaign of what are called, incidentally, that is their programs are not cyber sati, but they are called cyber warriors. And these are people who will take the responsibility of making others aware about the risks and adverse consequences. Similarly, the government partners with the Government of India institution called CDAC, and with the help of CDAC also we run lots of certification programs and so on and so forth. So we have a full-fledged Center of Excellence on Cybersecurity, which has been set up jointly by Telangana government and the Data Security Council of India. And through this institution, we run all these programs. And of course, there is no end to it. I can't claim that, okay, I have done 100 hours of training and that is all I need to do, because this is a never-ending process. You have to make people more and more and more aware. And of course, as we always know, there are new ways in which criminals and antisocial elements would try to exploit the internet. So we always have to remain on our toes, remain on guard, and try to outsmart them whenever they try something.
So thank you so much for this very elaborate opening statement. And you're absolutely right. It's equally important for youngsters to be aware of the financial aspects of frauds also, as much as the physical aspects, because they use technology a lot. And unfortunately or otherwise, they also use it very confidently. And with that same confidence, fall prey to crimes easily. So one aspect of it is the first level is a preventive and protective measure, which is what digital literacy addresses. But there is an eventuality at which stage people do fall victim to cybercrime. Is there a governance or a policy perspective which Telangana has been focusing on as a punitive measure, as in if prevention and protection were to fail, how easily can a victim avail of remedies? For instance, from the center, we now have the cybercrime.gov.in web portal through which any cybercrime victim can file a complaint. But similarly, there are a lot of state initiatives also for law enforcement. Would you like to touch upon that a bit, please?
Yes. So I'm glad, Napinai Garu, that you raised this question now. This is a very interesting time. I will speak about the state issue, but I'll comment on a very important national initiative which is going on. See, I being the IT secretary, I deal with the IT Act quite a lot. And many of us would know that the IT Act was introduced in the year 2000. So 2 decades have gone by. And obviously technology is a very fast-paced thing. Lots of dynamics, lots of developments keep happening very, very rapidly. And it has been realized that the IT Act has not been able to keep pace with the changes that have happened in technology. And therefore, the national government has started this initiative of reviewing the IT Act and perhaps modifying it, amending it, bringing a new act. And right now, a very detailed consultation process is going on with the states. So I have also given lots of suggestions to the national government on the amendments that are required to IT Act. And one of the suggestions that I have made is exactly on what you said about the punitive part. Unfortunately, the provisions of the IT Act are not as stringent, let us say, as the CRPC, etc. Sorry, as the IPC, pardon me, as the IPC. For instance, most of the sections in the IT Act are what are called compoundable. So let us say both the parties come together and they kind of compromise, then there's no kind of punitive action at all. And we recently faced this. I don't know whether you kept track of it or not, but just this is very, very recent. Just a couple of months ago, there was a major series of frauds in peer-to-peer lending using apps. And in fact, the tragedy was so enormous that some people in Telangana even lost their lives. They committed suicide because they took money using some app, and the harassment, the pressure to repay became so much. There was naming and shaming. And I remember a young employee of the government, a woman agriculture officer, she actually committed suicide. And Of course, Dr. Purnima is there. She will speak about these kind of things. But the way digital means are used to even harass people, frustrating them so much that they eventually end up their lives. So when we try to take action against IT Act, in this case, using the IT Act, we found that people were kind of compromising and compounding and all that. So we have recommended that we must harmonize the IT Act with the provisions of IPC, where the penalties are harsher, punitive actions are harsher. And of course, my colleague will comment, but I know that the State Police Department, the Home Department, is also working on bringing out a state-specific law as well. And hopefully, it's a matter of time before such a law will be introduced, so that there are enough provisions. The enforcement authorities are well armed in taking all kinds of punitive action. But IT Act amendment definitely will be a very important signal nationally, not just Telangana, but for the whole country, that any kind of cybercrime will just not be tolerated.
Absolutely right. And you're so right, sir, that everyone assumes that cybercrime is something virtual. It's happening somewhere else, and that there is no physical element to it or a harm to it. And I would like to circle back to you on a question with respect to emerging technologies. But your response now is the perfect segue for me to move to the panel. And I would like to start with Ms. Swati Lakra. Ma'am, you are, as Additional Director General of Police, in charge of women's safety, have started this amazing initiative of She Teams. And I was very, this other aspect that you have launched, the initiative Bharosa, or as it translates loosely in English as Trust, one-stop support center for women and children victims of sexual violence. That aspect caught my attention because trust is the one thing that is most needed in law enforcement. And most times I notice that when it comes to taking the help of law enforcement, victims invariably tend to shy away. There is a trust deficit, and it is so important for victims to come forward and file complaints. So I would like to request you to come in terms of the kind of threats and vulnerabilities that the online space brings with it, and the initiatives from the Telangana Police in terms of not just preventive and protective measures, but also with respect to law enforcement.
Thank you, Ms. Napinai, and a very good afternoon to Jayesh Ranjan sir and all the esteemed panelists who are there today. Yes, we have from Telangana Police side started quite a few initiatives to ensure the safety and security of women and children. And today, when we are talking about especially children, in the cyberspace, I frankly speaking feel that prevention is definitely better than cure. And it's always better that children be prepared, everyone for that matter, be prepared for what to expect the cyberspace. And that is why right from the beginning, our intention was to ensure that people this awareness generation, awareness programs reach up to the ground level, every person. And for that purpose, in fact, when I'm saying ground level, I'm saying even in the remotest of areas, because we need to now understand that everyone today has a smartphone. So everyone is using it, but the only thing is that they have to be prepared to use that instrument and prepared to use the gadget, and be aware of the danger when they are using these gadgets. In fact, when you were talking about our initiatives of She Teams, and the reason, in fact, why the She Teams were formed was to ensure that more and more women come forward to report, because there was always a kind of apprehension among the women that maybe my problem is small, maybe people will not believe me, So they always had that apprehension to come and report. But having the SHE teams in place, and we continuously told people, women, that you come out and report to us, even if you feel that it is a small thing, or if you feel that you will not be heard. So for that purpose, we prepared our own police officers. So we ensured that our own police officers were trained enough to listen to them and not to have their own mindsets and opinion about any kind of issues that the ladies were facing. So having said that, as far as online harassment is concerned, again, for that matter, we started a small survey before we started a campaign, and that survey was called the Youngster Conscious. And this was done during the pandemic, during the COVID time. And we tried to ask the parents, we tried to ask the students, especially the teenagers, about being in the cyberspace, being holed up in your house, how the online classes are happening, how you feel vulnerable, etc., etc. All these, this survey was analyzed, and then we started a campaign called CybHer, C-Y-B-H-E-R. And this CybHer was particularly for, ensuring that we could let children, students, parents, teachers know how dangerous it is if the internet is not used properly. And we got all the cyber safety experts in order to ensure that the children were, taught about the safety hygiene, cyber hygiene, how to be safe in the net. And one thing also we spoke was, normally we tend to always, address the victims, and we feel that all the students out there are victims. But we need to understand that among all the students, there may be perpetrators also. So we had to address them also, because no parent, acknowledges the fact that their child also may be a perpetrator, and they always feel that, they have to be protected. Of course, they have to be protected, but at the same time, the parents also need to know what their child is doing on the internet when the child is when the child is using the gadget. And that is why we ensured that all these things were basically spoken about, whether it is content, what kind of content they are watching, or whether, by chance they come across such a content, and then what to do in case they come across such a content. Also, contact risk, in case, how to be careful about whom to approach, and how not to approach, a stranger on the internet, as well as their own conduct. So all this was, spoken about. In fact, it was a very interactive kind of sessions that we had for 1 month. And also, I would like to here say that we now have partnered along with the education department with all the colleges. And shortly, we will be doing that with all the schools also, wherein we have this safety clubs for girls. And when I'm saying safety club for girls, it is also for boys. So basically, boys and girls as volunteers, they help us in spreading this awareness activity, and we give them enough training to spread out that activity. And this is happening. We have already partnered with 13 colleges, and we intend to go across all the 2,500 colleges in Telangana. So this is what we are planning to do from the side of the police department. And for this, we do take the help of all the stakeholders, in fact, who are today available on our panel also, all the departments. In fact, psychologist Dr. Purnima Nagaraj has also been a very, generous partner, I would say. She has been, doing counseling for our SHE team respondents also, for that matter. So Also, I would like to here say that we cannot work in isolation. The police department as such cannot work in isolation. We do need the help and the cooperation from all the stakeholders, including the departments, including the NGOs, etc., to come forward and ensure that the cyberspace is a safe place for children, parents, teachers to work on.
Absolutely. Ma'am, thank you so much. Several very important points raised there. It's so inspiring to see the work of Telangana Police in this. The most important issue that you've raised is you are giving voice, you're giving a ear to the stakeholder, the students, to understand where they are coming from. You have so importantly pointed out the fact that children can be perpetrators. And India is a very young nation. We don't want a nation of criminals. So it's so important that knowledge becomes a deterrence against crime also. And that is one of the important focus that Cyber Saathi also places. Not to merely preach, not to merely give lists of do's and don'ts, but to make it very personal and practical. And the most important point from my perspective, that which will bridge that trust deficit gap, is what you're doing with your SHE teams and Cyber, which is to understand that the victim is not to be blamed. They are not alone, they are not to be blamed, and that they have to take the help of law enforcement. My biggest concern, and this actually also refers to what Mr. Jayesh Ranjan mentioned, even with respect to financial fraud, is many times victims also feel ashamed that they fell prey. So they'd rather hide rather than come out with it. And that emboldens the criminal to commit more crimes. So the victim falls victim again, and others also fall victim because there was no one filing a complaint. So very, very important issues. I hope we get to come back to take more inputs from you, and it's so inspiring. I hope there is a lot that across the nation we can do together. You mentioned about the role of educational institutions and what is the importance of spreading awareness. So I'd like to move to Dr. Banerjee Chakka. And on this note, I would also like to add that I differ from Deepal on one count. She said that Mr. Jayesh Ranjan needed an introduction because this is going national, possibly international. I can say that almost everybody in this panel is known all over the world. You're all not people just known locally, sir. Every one of you, sir and ma'am, the work that you're doing and the manner in which it's being done is noticed, and it's inspiring the world, not just a small region. So thank you all for it. Dr. Banerjee Chakka, you're from, originally from the Andhra University, and thereafter you moved on to study from the University of London, and you're the recipient of the doctoral scholarship awarded by the Hague Academy of International Law. You've been focusing predominantly on international humanitarian law, and you've written 3 books, including on humanitarian law and also on aviation and space law. We could not have a better person to address the issue of cyber safety and the role of education in it. Sir, over to you for your inputs on this aspect.
Thank you very much, ma'am. And it is indeed a great pleasure, and good afternoon to all of you. First of all, I would like to say that one important thing, the role of educational institutions is at this point of time, first sensitization, and the second thing, the language in which we are interacting with the students today. That's very important. Today, if I observe amongst all of us are now mostly we are lawyers. If I say that yourself and Jayesh Ranjan sir and Swati Lakra ma'am, we are having a bit of policy and the government and law. We are living and we are with that language. When we are speaking, now my first concern is that our laws as well as the policy is able to communicate properly to the end users, that's the students and the children of this country. And now that is the first thing educational institutions should be able to do it. Now, in this regard, for the first time, in the VIT AP School of Law, we have started with cyber clinical cell. The cyber clinic is primarily is going to interact with the local children and the village children and the children, those who are studying the government schools and local schools, and sensitize them in the language which they are supposed to understand. First of all, look at that, the current situations, what we are in. If this pandemic was not happened in this globe, we could have been 10 years maybe behind with regard to the digital awareness and the digital interactions. Now it's like a 10 years of fast forwarded. Suddenly, last March in 2020, we got woken up with the pandemic. Then after that, we suddenly moved from a normal platform to virtual world. That's all of a sudden it's so happened, and we are not able to realize. And we are quickly adopted to the digital culture. Now, when we are adopted to this digital culture, the first thing, are we aware of the digital responsibility which we supposed to know? That my answer is possibly no. And digital ethics, and that is also I don't think many of us have. Like for example, I take a bit of a traffic class in this country. We have the traffic laws and the traffic rules. We have lots of personnel are working on that. Still, every day we are bound to make a lot of mistakes on that. We are not responsible in that regard. The same thing applies to the today in a digital world also. So that we need to create awareness among the children. And also, without knowing that, we talk, the people talk about that, we need to create a digitalized world, smart technologies, smart boards and smart classrooms and everything. They are essential. But our country, we have a big digital gap and a digital divide. How are we going to address that? First thing, when we talk about that, digital rights, they are important. But when we are talking about the digital rights, we do talk about that the great power comes with a great responsibility. What it been said that in Spider-Man, Uncle Ben has mentioned the same thing. Now, this digital rights like access, participation, free speech, community, privacy, physical and psychological safety, and identity, and also material and intellectual property. All these things are very important. Maybe, being a student of law, I know all these things, but my colleagues working in the VIT AP University and those who are completely working with the different platforms, and I do interact with them, they say that, sir, we are not aware of all these things. Can you take some kind of awareness classes on this? So which we are doing that slowly, trying to educate. We are digitalizing, but we need to know that how responsibility we need to use this digital platforms and the cyber platforms, etc. That's the first thing education institutions must be doing. The second thing is that now we need to create another education tools, like even already CBSE, NCERT, they all have done it. We need to create a kind of children or maybe user-friendly manuals or user-friendly tools where we can go to across the streets and we can speak to the people. Take for example, a 6-year-old girl and took her father's mobile and she's playing. She keep on playing, and whatever the responses she's getting, she's accepting. At the end, what happened? Her father's money is completely drained off from his account. Look at that. So that's the first problem, how we make restraint of all these things, number one. Number two, in this country, still a lot of people, they do not have the English education. If you look at that, all the apps which are generated in the cyber medium and digital technologies are in English. Most of the people, they do accept it. Today, we have the wrap-click contracts in legal terminology, and unless you accept the terms and conditions, you cannot download. Most of the people, those who are working in an unorganized sector, those who are drivers, those who are fruit vendors, etc., they are not aware of what contracts they are entering into. And they suddenly, they download one app, they download some music, and they click it, and that moment is become the gateway for them for all kinds of digital frauds, etc. happening. This we need to do. Thus, as educational institutions, we have a greater role and responsibility. As I said, like colleges and universities like us, we have to take ownership and join with our government officials like Jayesh sir is doing wonderful job, and Swati ma'am also doing wonderful job. But they can prepare the policies, they can have the laws and implement them. But how do you take them to the grassroots level? It is with organizations like you, the Cybersati, or with organizations like us. So that is why it is the first thing educational institutions have to come forward. That is why with this aspiration only, we have started our cyber clinic at our law department in the VIT AP School of Law. I can boast that this is maybe first of its kind. We are going to roll it out. That is why I said we need help from all of you so that we can take the mantle of awareness across the country and make a better digital world. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. And with all of your assistance, we do definitely hope to take this kind of awareness through an interactive medium to all the students, so that it's not just about telling them what to do or what not to do, but allowing them to own their decision, to decide and to apply it themselves, and therefore confidently stand up for their rights if things were to go wrong. Many times when cyber crimes happen, we are kind of like talking to a digital medium, and everything also happens on a digital medium. Therefore, even perpetrators sometimes think this is a victimless crime. Shockingly, there were a series of about 4 judgments which came out of the US lower courts, and it had to be remedied or rectified by the appeals court. Thankfully, it has been rectified. But in these cases of pedophilia, the courts actually recorded that these are victimless crimes and either did not sentence the perpetrator or gave very lenient sentences. It took an appeals court to rectify this, to say that no, it is not a victimless crime. Cyber crimes affect individuals physically and psychologically. To address this issue, we have a very, very eminent speaker who has worked hands-on with victims. Dr. Purnima Nagaraja, Ms. Swati Lakra already mentioned about your role, very important role with Bharosa and She teams. Thank you for taking time out here. You're a psychiatrist and a psychotherapist with 30 years experience, the founder of Dhriti Wellness Clinic. You worked on empowerment and child and adolescent issues. Nothing could have connected better with the Cybersati initiative, particularly the aspect of how you have provided a safe space for LGBTQIA, if I may add plus also in that, for so many years, or should I say decades. You know that children are one of the most vulnerable online, and so are LGBTQIA. So you have a huge experience, hands-on experience in counseling and dealing with the physical and the psychological aspects of cyber crimes. So ma'am, please, over to you for your inputs on this aspect.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everybody. Mr. Jayesh Ranjan, Swati ma'am, our very own Swati ma'am. And thank you for having me here. To deal with the psychological aspects, one must understand there are certain, as you said, areas which are dark areas. And these dark areas, one thing is the groomers. When we are talking of child abuse, cyber abuse, the ones that groom. Recently, about, I think a year and a half ago, there was a case in England where a gentleman was grooming this child. And then the police took over and they kept texting him, pretending to be the child. And then when she was going to meet him at a hotel, they arrested him. But this doesn't always happen. A lot of our children are groomed. And mostly nowadays it's online because the children are also, as you said, constantly online. School lessons are boring. Let's be frank about it. Online lessons are not taken up as well as regular. We don't have a classroom atmosphere where a teacher is there at least watching the children. Parents are also working from home, but they've got their own stuff to do. So a large section of children between, say, the ages of maybe around 9 to about 17, they're completely unsupervised. And this is where the abuse happens. The other thing I wanted to bring up is, the ethical hacking. I don't know what is so ethical about this hacking. And everybody today is a junior wannabe Julian Assange. And the thing is, which I don't want to argue about whether that was right or wrong, but what people are doing is getting into university sites, putting up obscene pictures there, threatening teachers. Recently, there was this case where a teacher was threatened. A lot of the teachers, they're put up on porn sites, wherein a telephone number given saying, take me. There was recently this boy who came to my clinic who wanted 50,000 rupees from his mother. And when she said, I can't give you that, he put a camera in the bathroom when she was bathing. He sat down and edited his own mother taking a shower. And then he put it up on a porn site. And it became apparently viral. Except the mother, everybody else had seen it, including the cousins and the relatives. And it turned into something which she had no control over, because then he did that to his sister also. So the third thing I want to bring up here is recidivism. Once an offender, there is a chance, and this boy is all of 17 years old, there is a chance that they might reoffend for whatever reason. Why do they do that? One thing is, today, I think there is a huge lack of moral qualm. Moral responsibility or moral qualm, a lot of association with deviant peers, and the promise of money. You see, even if it's on a porn site, if it goes viral, apparently you make money. I came to know that rather recently. And then we have, of course, we normalize these needs. I have needs, or I normalize them, and so therefore I shall do things on the net, which are probably not the right things, knowingly, that they're not the right things. We've also come across little children who didn't know what is happening. They would say like, okay, would you, I want to send you some gifts. Some random uncle, as they call them, you see in India. I want to send you some gifts. So would you take off your frock and send me a picture so that I know the right size? And the little kids do it. So you see, there are people who teach children to touch themselves inappropriately. There are people who teach children to on the net. I'm not just talking about sexual crimes, but this seems to be, something that came bubbling up in the pandemic. We've heard about them, but we've seen a lot more of that during this 1 year. And one of the, psychological theories that people talk about is a lack of individual self-control and the need for some level of gratification. So here I would like to say something that, why, when I asked a lot of the youngsters, preteens and teens, why they send not very decent pictures of themselves on the net, and that to people they don't quite know, that turns into an MMS, it goes all over the place. And then they just said that, I thought that was love. So here there is something that we need to also address, that, in our country where education is everything, see where we go beyond labor laws when it comes to making our children study, that lack of love, the lack of demonstrative love from parents or from peers or from the older people in the family, this also can lead to people, to be wide open to abuse on the net, because they're spending more time there. And if any message pops up, they're likely to respond to it. We also have this paranoia that if we don't respond to WhatsApp, or if we don't respond to anybody texting us on social media, it's something bad. So even at 2 in the morning, if somebody texts you, you will try to answer, or at least you're available, watching and reading, and the person knows that you're reading it. And then, these things seem to go on. Another mention I'd like to say is that today's generation lacks a little bit of empathy, in the sense that when we are talking about what Swati ma'am said about, youngsters who can also perpetrate crimes, many of them don't have the empathy. They said, look, I did something wrong. They'll say, yeah, so what? I mean, big deal, deal with it and get over it, right? So these are also issues. And, today we have very hazy boundaries between what is right and what is wrong.
I have one more question for you, which I would like you to take in the session itself. This is something I have seen personally also. The last part which you just mentioned about the children also being perpetrators, the role of parents in that. So I just wanted to share this anecdote, like a physical, what you see visually also. So you have the victim and you have the victim's family. They sit like this because they feel ashamed. They think they've committed something wrong and they think that it's their fault that something happened to the child. Now here is the perpetrator's family sitting comfortably and, very aggressive and thinking, so what? I mean, it's not like they feel remorse. It's not like they feel that their child should not have committed this wrong. Right. And I'm keeping it gender neutral because there is also this false assumption that all perpetrators will be boys and all victims are girls. That's not the case. So the body language is indicative of the mental framework also. And this is after the very drastic, look at the kind of anecdotes you're bringing up, Dr. Purnima. After this comes to the fore, this is their attitude. Yes. So then what is the role of parents in terms of formulating a better thought process for the children also? If you could also address that aspect of the why are these things happening?
So one thing, ma'am, I'd like to address here is that if you're looking at a person who is a victim, she or he is always the one who's made the mistake. Who asked you to send? Who asked you to talk? Who asked you to fall prey for the grooming? See, there is no demarcation that says that sometimes, there's such a mind bend that happens. You see, look at what happened with the blue whale. Perfectly normal kids who have probably some sadness in them were all targeted and picked enough to kill themselves. So people who cash in on human vulnerabilities, that concept does not exist that, human beings are vulnerable. Oh, you did it on purpose. Just because he asked you to send a picture, why did you send it? See, that is the attitude of, the parents or the family members of the perpetrator, because you want to, presume that your child or the perpetrator who is within your family is innocent, that he or she was just a victim and that one was actually being a temptress or a person who was tempting her. So we don't want to even accept that a mistake is a mistake, which is why we have recidivism. They will offend again and again and again because they're getting away with it. I also want to draw, there are two eminent lawyers here, yourself and Mr. Banerjee, that I remember reading about this long ago and I just wrote it down so I'll remember. On the 7th of February 2019, question 581 in the Rajya Sabha spoke about if grooming could be included in the POCSO law. And the answer which I read about, I hope that it's right and accurate, that there is no such provision as yet. Okay, so this is another thing that I need, because I need to understand better also, because if this can be included in our safety measures and in our educative measures, that there is something called grooming, and how this goes about and how a person actually takes over your mind and your consciousness and makes you do the things that you do. So therefore, we also must go on the premise that the victim is not to be blamed, A. B, the perpetrator also may not need to be blamed. That we need to be able to bring about a situation where they understand their mistake, are educated about making such mistakes and the punishment for these mistakes, and to deal with their emotional issues which concern that. It's wrong to say that many people have personality disorders and all these psychopaths and sociopaths and these are the only ones who are doing it. No, it's not at all like that. Sometimes it's just sheer peer pressure. Sometimes it's just sheer loneliness and boredom. And these are issues that none of us address. We look at them as criminals, but we don't look at them as human beings who have frailties, and which is why they're indulging in this. See, today sex is a very ordinary word for everybody. You have little children talking about it. There are little children who say, yes, I touch myself inappropriately. So what? An 8-year-old said this to me this morning. So very difficult to, reach a stage of understanding when it comes to the mind. So I think all of us need to expand our thinking to be able to include parents, to teach them, bring them onto a platform where there's a lot of non-judgmental teaching, and even the people who are perpetrators as well as the victims on platforms where they are not judged for what they have done, but educated time and again. And not just by threats of law, but also time and again to create a space where they don't feel the need to fall for A, peer pressure, B, for, to deal, with the low empathy, and also for areas where, revenge and these words, like I make sure that if a teacher yells at you today, she's on some porn site. Or if your friend, it refuses to be your girlfriend or a boyfriend or whatever, you see, there is revenge. So these emotions, which are very negative emotions, they need to be dealt with, and in a slightly more harmonious manner, and not just, pointing fingers and saying, you did this.
Absolutely right. Thank you so much for those very valuable inputs. I'm going to circle back to Ms. Swati Lakra and Dr. Banerjee later, but one important closing comment from Mr. Jayesh Ranjan Garu. Thank you so much for staying with us today. And before you leave, sir, may I request you to give your inputs on these three aspects. Now, governance or policy making is really going to be the crux in terms of cyber safety. We have heard from the various panelists the need for a definitive law, which you have also touched upon. In fact, in 2019, I had given my inputs also as part of a committee which was appointed, I think, by MHA. It was working under the aegis of MHA on the need for specificity in the law when it is dealing with certain kinds of cyber crimes. Because one important issue is a law is not about the heading, it is the section that matters, to answer Dr. Purnima's question. Therefore, there is a law already to deal with grooming also. But the groomer or the predator doesn't know that. So having specificity in the law becomes very important. Telangana, through you, is already participating in bringing out that specificity. But the issue about needing for instance, the educational aspect. Would the government consider including cyber safety as a module within an educational program or within the educational fabric itself as part of the curriculum? That becomes a very important aspect. Feeling or having some process which will deal with the mental health issue. And finally, sir, you are aware that there are now measures for providing legal help even at the stage of filing of a complaint for people like rape victims, etc. Similarly, now may be a time when we may have to look at that kind of support mechanism for cyber crimes also. So your last words from a policy perspective on all of these aspects, please.
Yeah, thank you, Napinai Garu. And I would also like to congratulate other panelists for their very insightful comments and some very practical advice that they have given. So let me, I'll try to answer all the 3 points, but let me pull out a question which has come on the chat window. And I'm using that question as an illustration of what I wanted to tell. So the question which has been put on the chat window is like this, that is it safe to give adult devices to kids to take online classes, or should we give only a dedicated device to the children? So I'm sure the question has been asked in good faith, but the answer is like this. You can surely do that. I mean, you can have your own device. You can create a separate device for the child, or you can put a child lock and you can ensure that children don't access anything and everything. But that is not enough. I mean, that solves a part of your problem. But we know, I mean, we know the mentality of children. We know the psychology of children. The more something is denied to them, the more curious they become about that, and the more they try to violate and bypass and try to access the so-called forbidden fruits. So putting a separate device or putting a child lock will only be a shortcut or a temporary solution. The larger issue is, first of all, have you built a good trusting relationship with your child? so that when you advise something to the child understands that the parent is not just using his or her authoritarianism, but also speaking about the child's long-term benefits. Secondly, has the child been put in an environment where his teachers, I mean, obviously, beyond a point, more than the parents, it is the teachers who enjoy greater credibility in the eyes of the child. So are they in a position to guide you? What kind of peer group you are moving in? The multiple social points of contact that you have, how are they kind of visualizing this scenario of your internet safety or cyber safety, etc., etc. So it's a very large question. And this is precisely what I wanted to tell you about the three things that you speak about. We need a good policy so that the intent of the government is well announced. And in fact, we are in the process of bringing out the newer version of our IT policy. The existing IT policy is expiring in April. And now we are bringing the next version. And we are planning to give a very definitive space for cyber etiquette, cyber conduct, cyber safety, security, etc. in that. But most importantly, policies are intent, but who is the person or institution who takes ownership to implement that? So we need to work with multiple stakeholders, educational institutions. There are lots of counselors like Dr. Purnima who can play a very important role. Police also, as Swatiji rightly pointed out, there is a reactive policing. After the crime has happened, you rush into it and try to do something. But there is also a proactive thing or preventive thing on how do you create a sense of social security so that people are more aware about these kind of matters. So working with multiple stakeholders is very, very important. And what you mentioned is very true, because we have to start young. We have to catch them young, right from an impressionable age or from an age where they can potentially get into some of these adverse points in the aspects in the cyber world. We have to definitely bring as a part of curriculum, as a part of awareness building, much more efforts. Whatever we have done so far is good. It is on the right track, but obviously we need to deepen it. So I'll be very happy to work with everyone, create a very robust institutional mechanism in Telangana, not just at the state level, but every district, sub-district, school. And I seek everyone's partnership and support for this. So I'm sorry I'll not be able to stay on till the very end, but look forward to much more collaboration and partnerships with all of you.
Not at all. And thank you so much for taking so much time out. It was an absolute pleasure and honor to connect with you and to get your inputs on this podium. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Jayashree. Your words are always inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
So we are really sorry we have taken a little extra time from all the panelists, but you know, with the kind of quality that Times of India has put together today, a special thanks to them for this. I think even a whole day of discussions with a panel of this caliber will not be sufficient. Ms. Swati Lakra, over to you for your closing comments, but there is a question for you from an audience in terms of what is the opportunity for engineers in terms of cyber security in the police department. And I also wanted to pose the question that Dr. Purnima raised with respect to ethical hackers here, because there is a misconception in the minds of most people when they say ethical hacking. Ethical hacking is not hacking where you're not committing a harm. Ethical hacking is hacking where you're doing it with the consent of the owner. If consent is lacking, then you are committing a violation irrespective. Similarly, on many counts, I find that there is a lot of misapprehension in the minds of people because of which they end up doing a lot of crime. So there is one aspect which is the preventive protective measure, then there is a punitive aspect. And many times in cyber crimes, we are caught somewhere in between where the dishonest or fraudulent intent may not be there, but people have committed something wrong. So ma'am, over to you for your experiences on all of these.
Yeah, in fact, somehow this term ethical hacking has become kind of glamorous and the in thing, I would say, among the student community also. Because I remember one day when we were having this kind of awareness session, one class 8
boy, he said, I want to be an ethical hacker. Now, how much of what he understands about being an ethical hacker, I do not know. But coming back to your question, which somebody has posed, some engineering student who wants to be a part of, how he can be a part of this hacking, you said?
No, the cyber security team of the police department to fight hackers. Sure.
Yeah, actually, we do, welcome a student community and, the working community to volunteer with us. Because as I said earlier, we are not, we cannot work alone. We don't have that capacity also to work alone. So, in fact, we are encouraging students and the working professionals to help us in various ways. There are so many ways in which you can volunteer with us. And depending on the skill sets that you have, some people may be very good at, content writing. Some people may be very good at whatever. And we can also train you on, on the aspects of what we need help about. So in fact, whoever is willing and willing to do something, give back to the society, we welcome all of them. And you can, in fact, I can give my mail ID, womansafetyts@gmail.com. You can, give your consent about volunteering with us there. And then lastly, I would also like to, assure all the parents and the students that you should not be quiet whenever something like this happens. You have to understand, and as Ms. Napinai also had earlier spoken, that if you do not report the crime, that person who is, harassing you will get more encouraged, and he will do the same. He or she, whatever, will do the same to the other person also. That is why it is very important to report crime. How to report crime is something which you need to know. First of all, report it to a person whom you trust. It could be your parents. It could be your teacher who is your counselor or your mentor or whoever teacher you trust and you are close to and who is close to the children, the students. But please report. Tell them that this kind of a thing is happening. Many a times what happens is that many of those children get blackmailed and they somehow, as Dr. Purnima Nagaraj was saying, for just taking that 50,000 rupees, he almost sold his mother and sister. So, it is important for the parents to understand the psyche also of the children and to let them know, as Jayesh Ranjan sir was also saying, that they are their friends, that they have to talk to them in a way that they will open up to them in case something like that happens. So it is very important for parents also not to shut the children down right away, but to talk to them and know what the issues are. Another thing is, as far as parents, children or students are concerned, it is important to, one is report. Now, where do you report? There is a cybercrime portal also of the MHA, but more importantly, at your local police station or the cybercrime police station. Mind you, we are always available. As far as Telangana is concerned, you can always report to the SHE teams also. Earlier, I was talking about SHE teams being very, very open to, and we are taking such cases also of cybercrime against women and children. And today, we are also, in fact, equipping ourselves with enough tools and technology and software to detect these crimes immediately. So we have the wherewithal also to detect the crime, and we can do it, let me tell you, within 24 hours also. We have that much of capability with us. So those who are even planning to do something, please beware. We can, we will catch you anyways. Maybe it will take a day or two or even a month, but we'll definitely catch you. That is one thing. Next is, it is important that you do not delete your, in case some stuff has come into your your gadget, please don't delete it. Show it to your person and save that. You can save the screenshot, you can save the link or whatever, but save it with you so that tomorrow it acts as a very good evidence. And for us also, it becomes easier. So it is important to first contact the person whom you trust. It can be your teacher, your parents, or you can come directly to us. And I would like to share our WhatsApp number also with all of you in case you are, suffering from cyber crime of some sort. It is 9441 669988. 9441 669988 is our WhatsApp number. And this is the SHE Team's WhatsApp number. Your identity will be kept confidential. Let me tell you that also. And we will work on that. We will get back to you immediately. And if we need some more, data or evidence or any material, we will get back to you. Then, of course, we will ensure that, you are in touch with us and we get that person immediately. And, the laws are there. Yes, we do, maybe if we are not able to, in the IT Act, if it is not there, we resort to the IPC also, or we also resort to POCSO Act in case, it is a child. So we have ways in which we can, get that person and put him under bars, him or her under bars, if it is required. So my only request is do not stay silent. Do report your cases so that we can help you better. That's all I can say. I have to say. Thank you.
Ma'am, absolutely. Wonderful inputs. Thank you so much for highlighting all the resources. Every single statement that you made is actually the vision and mission of CyberSaathi also. To identify and to talk about the threats and vulnerabilities, to show that there are remedies in law, that victims should not feel debilitated because they think the law will not work for them. They have to trust the law, they have to come forward. And they have everybody around them has to be a friend. And in fact, that is the reason why I chose the name CyberSaathi more than anything else, because all of us have to be friends for ourselves, to keep ourselves safe, and then to people around us, be it family or friends. And ma'am, thank you so much for bringing that message out completely. I hope the viewers have noted the number that you have mentioned. I'll repeat again the MHA portal. It's cybercrime.gov.in, easy to remember. And in case you need help in terms of understanding what is it that should form part of your complaint, what are the documents that should accompany it, and keep in mind what Ms. Swati Lakra mentioned about not deleting the evidence and ensuring that you're submitting the evidence correctly along with your complaint. You will find a lot of guidance on cybersaathi.org. That is our official site, cybersaathi.org. So please go and take the benefit of the guidance that is provided there. We have about 1 minute. I would like to take this opportunity for closing comments from Dr. Banerjee Chakka. And I don't know if it'll be possible. Sir, if you could make it half a minute, then I'll move it to
30 seconds.
Dr. Purnima for 30 seconds. Then.
Yeah, I completely agree with your question posed to Jayesh sir and what Swati ma'am said. Education is very important. We need to make it as a part of education curriculum. And the policymakers and the law and order mechanism cannot work in insulation or isolation. They have to work with a collaboration and cooperative effort. In this endeavor, institutes like us, we are in forefront. VITAP School of Law, VITAP University, we are there. And we also have the technological edge with us, as well as we have the legal mechanisms. We can support with the state and other NGOs to carry forward this mantle. With this, I thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so much for being here. Dr. Purnima, would you like to just add for 10 seconds? Sorry, you're on mute, ma'am.
So I'll make this super quick. I'd like to end by a question by Dr. Dhruv Bakshi that appeared on our chat. He says, considering a large portion of the normalization of inappropriate knowledge in children and its propagation in school or in our educational system, how do we potentially supervise the conversations teenagers have without hurting their privacy and their independent development? I think that's a wonderful question. Thank you for this, Dr. Dhruv Bakshi. I think this is a wonderful way to end. And I'd like to talk to the parents here when I say, please talk to your children about sex. Sex is not a taboo. You'd rather, they'd rather get the knowledge from you rather than from indecent sites and porn sites. Talk to them about porn, talk to them about cyber sex, talk to them about grooming, talk to them about sex, the normal development, normal needs, talk to them about masturbation, all of the things that they need to know. Take the kick out of it as people get from all these sites. You see, these sites are, they're designed to titillate. So take that titillation out, talk to them about sex, have straight talks with them. And I think we need to get over our own inhibitions as adults to be able to talk to our children. It's only then you can have these conversations with our children. And our children also will stop normalizing what is wrong into what is right. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you all panelists so much for sharing such amazing insights. I would like to close with just two things. One is to reiterate what Ms. Swati Lakra mentioned, that it is also important for the adults, parents, teachers, whoever, siblings, to share with the others, the kids, youngsters in their life, that they can be tracked, they can be traced, they can be penalized. And then you have your entire future ahead of you, which also gets spoiled. So when you talk about normalization, today's conduct, and particularly taking from the kind of incidents that Dr. Purnima shared with us, it's very important for children to know where is that line that delineates right and wrong, and how can they stay on the right side of the line. And that sometimes could happen only with this awareness about what is wrong in terms of what they are doing and how it can impact them. Unless and until each person understands the impact that their actions or consequences will have on themselves, not just on the victims, that is when it will work as a deterrence also. Thank you all so much for sharing such amazing insight. With this program, Times of India and Cyber Sati are launching an e-awareness program for Telangana schools. And I'm sure the interactive manner in which the message is carried will be reflective of exactly what has been shared by the panelists in this session. Again, I can only say a simple thank you to every single one of you for your wonderful, insightful, and absolutely inspiring inputs. I do hope that we will get the opportunity to work together more. Ms. Swati Lakra, I definitely look forward to taking our message further, as we discussed offline earlier, in the local language, in the regional language, because you're absolutely right. This message is not just for top tier or urban areas or semi-urban, but for absolute rural and every single grassroots level school and educational institution. Every child should get to know. So I do hope that we all get the opportunity to collaborate to this one common goal of cyber safety for children online. Thank you all once again.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, madam. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.